Good morning, everyone. Just so that you know, this will be a recorded training or recorded webinar. If you have any questions or if you want to have this recording afterwards, please just email me at the following email address, zkteco.co.za. So training@zkteco.co.za. I'm just going to paste that in chat again. So if you would like this recording, please just email me afterwards, and then I will send you the link to this training. Okay, so I'm going to close the chat, but if you have any other questions online after the training, I will then answer them if we have time left. Okay, so I'm just going to close that. All right, welcome everybody. Today we're going to go over ZKBioSecurity basic training, or the basic version of ZKBioSecurity, the course, right? So what we'll be covering is system, basic management, some area settings, department, database management, access, device, how to add your devices, door settings, real-time monitoring, what that is all about, access levels, which you will get inside of access controls, how to set up your time zones, how to create a holiday, how to add people to access levels and how to enable them to open up doors, etc. And then also how to create or add a personnel profile, how to create positions, how to dismiss a personnel, and what happens when you dismiss someone, as well as look at one report, which is the all transactions report. Okay, so that is what we'll be covering today. This is the agenda for this course or this webinar. I'm just going to close this. All right, so the first time you open up biosecurity, this is what you'll be met with, right? So this is what you will see. It will ask you for a username and password. So the first thing, the first time you come onto this system, the default login details will be admin, right? So it will be admin as is at the top, and then this will also be the password. Okay, so if I click on login now, it will take me into the system. If this is your first time logging in, it will ask you to change the password. Okay, so if you have logged in before, you would know that they asked you, or the system asked you to change the password. So if you've logged in more than once, your password will not be admin anymore. Okay, so it will be something else. Right, so this is your dashboard. You'll be met with your dashboard once you go into the system. You'll see the amount of users you have on your database. We have 47. That's our current total, as well as 12 devices we have added on our system. So I'll be adding one today with you guys. So we'll have 13 at the end of today. But for now, as we stand now, we have 12 devices. All of them, for your information, is currently offline. So none of them are online at the moment. Okay, so we have 12 devices on the system. Out of the 47, we have 7 people with cards, 40 people without cards, right? With fingerprints, 4 with fingerprints, 43 without fingerprints. 0 of the personnel have passwords, and then yeah, as well as the faces, right? So this is only updated if you have a Android device. So if you have a Linux-based device, this will not update for you. But if you have Android-based devices, right? So we have devices which is based on an Android platform. If you have that one of those devices, then this will update for you. It will show that how many faces you have on this or on that device, right? If you have any finger veins loaded onto your personnel, you'll also be able to see that, as well as the palm prints. All right, at the bottom half of the screen, you will see some events, right? You will see the access events. If you have the other modules, you will also be able to switch through, flip through them. You will see the different events from them as well. So if you have parking, visitor, attendance, you'll see this as well. But in your case, you might only have access, right? So you'll only see the access events for today or for the week or for this month. Okay, so currently this system has not been that active as of late. Okay, you'll also see the 5 top exception events over here would have been listed. Your exception events, people that was not unregistered, right? So people that were unregistered, people that access the system or the site without any masks, things like that. Okay, so that's what you will see here at the bottom side. Then if you've created any areas, it will also display here, but in this agenda, we're not going to do this, right? At the top right side, you will see the different kind of events we can have on the system. The total events, this is just normal events, right? Combined with the other two, right? So we have normal events, exception events, as well as alarm events. So alarm events is basically if the door was forcefully opened, etc., etc. Okay. Exception events is usually if someone was not registered and they try to tag on it. Normal event is if they opened up the door successfully. Okay. So this is the dashboard. Let's quickly go to area settings. You'll find that underneath your system, right? So I'm just going to click on the cogwheel, which is called system. Okay, there we go. Then once I've clicked on system, you will see that there is a menu on the left, but it is currently tucked away. How do you expand that menu? You just click on this icon at the top to expand this. If you want to tuck that away again, you will just click on that icon again. Okay. So if you want to see what's going on in the menu, just expand that. Otherwise, you can just collapse the menu again. All right, we'll be going over area settings as well as department and then also database management. Okay, so let's quickly go through area settings. What is area settings? So an area is used to group your devices, right? So this is usually if you have devices in multiple places, maybe on one site, you want to create a training room or a server room or a reception, or maybe the stairs area, for example. You can call this whatever you'd like. You will see here that we've already renamed or named some areas, Miriam, as well as Ricotso, etc., etc. Okay, so you can create your own area, name this whatever you'd like. There will be a default area. You'll see here that this is the remark for this one. In your case, it will just be called area. It won't be called ZKTeco Experience Center. So in your case, this might just be area, and this will be the default area. You cannot delete the default area, but you can delete the other areas if you'd like. Okay, so you can only edit the area that is there, right? So I'll click on edit here. You will see here that I cannot change the area number. This is because if you've created an area or a department or a personnel for that fact, you cannot change the number or the ID number of that person. Okay, so area number, once you've created an area, you cannot change the number, but you can change the name. If you'd like this name maybe to be on number 2, for example, then you might have to switch it with number 2, or you can just delete number 2 and then create number 2 again. Okay, so you can put in a remark. Remark is just something like a side note for yourself if you'd like some more information on this, or just a remark, right? So in your case, this was called area. We just renamed it to ZKTeco Experience Center, which is one of our branches located in Centurion. Right, so we have created this area, and then all of our devices will then be linked to this area, for example. Okay, so the area is used for linking devices to them. Okay, so let's say you have a device in the testing area, then you'll know, okay, that device is located in the testing area. Or if it's allocated to the training room, then you know, okay, there is one device, for example, located in the training room. Okay, so that's why you create different areas. In your case, it might be branches, room names, etc., etc. You'll see here that it ranges quite erratically. It goes from 1, 2, 3, and then 2, 2, 0. The reason for that, if I click on new, okay, so you won't see it on this one, but usually if you create an area, it will just add the latest one at the bottom. So I'm just going to put here number 7, and I'm going to put a 7 there as well. Just going to say, okay, there you go. So it will add the latest area at the bottom. It will not keep them on the area name, except if you sort them. Okay, so if you sort them, then they will be listed alphabetically or whatever you sort them as. Okay. I'm just going to delete this area quickly. Very important, when you want to add an area, you click on this new button, right? It's going to ask you for an area number. please note that this is only for numbers. Okay, do not start with a 0. Okay, do not start with zeros. Start with number 1. Okay, well, you can't start with number 1 because number 1 is already there. Start with number 2 and then go up from there. Okay. Okay, so do not start with zeros. Start with 1 and go up from there. Please make sure that you do not use any special characters. Okay, so no special characters and no letters. Okay, so a number, if it asks you for an area number, please put in a number, for example. Okay, so you'll notice that I already have a number 2. So if I click out of this, it will tell me that I cannot use number 2 because 2 is already allocated to a different area. So I'm just going to say number 7, and I'm going to call this, well, I've already got training, so I'm just going to leave that as is. But you'll choose a different name for this, right? So this can be training, just normal training, for example. Let's just do that. Okay, training. And then we'll choose a parent area. What is a parent area? Okay, so if I click on this drop down, you'll kind of get an image of what a parent area is and how that works, right? So if I collapse all of these little menus, you'll see that ZKTeco Experience Center has, I don't know, 5 children, right? So the one child is testing, the other child is training room, Ricordo, TK, Cyril, for example. Okay, so that is the children of ZKTeco Experience Center. Then training room had also had a child. Okay, training room had training 1. Training 1 also had a child, and that is training room, for example. Ricordo had a child named Miriam, and Miriam had a child named Hai. Okay, so that is what a parent area is, how that works, right? So this is a hierarchical view. In your case, you might have to say that the first area is maybe the branch name. Then within the branch, you have different rooms or areas located or linked to that branch. Okay, so the parent area, that is the main area. And then that main area has different children or sub areas linked to that. Okay, so if I click on this training room, or no, I'm just going to leave it underneath Experience Center, right? So if I just click on Experience Center, then this training, number 7, will then be linked to ZKTeco Experience Center. Okay, so if I click on OK there, you'll see that number 7 training is linked to Experience Center. That's the parent of this area. If I click on that again, and I click on the drop down, you will see that training is here at the bottom because it's on the same level as all the rest. Okay, so if I want to move a different area to this training, for example, let's go to, I think it's training room. Let's go this one. Okay, training room. I'm then going to move under training, for example. Let's say, okay. If I click here on anyone, just to open up that menu again, just to show you, you will see that training now has training room, training 1, and then another training room 1, for example. Okay, so you can drill into this quite far. Okay, so you can create a quite in-depth structure if you'd like. Okay, so that is just the areas. Okay, so areas are used for devices. Please just remember that. Okay, then you can delete multiple areas at once if you'd like. You can just not delete the first one. You can use that button if you selected them on the left and use the delete button to delete them. Otherwise, you can delete them individually by using the buttons on the right. Okay, you can also export this list. So if I click on export, right, you have 4 options, either an Excel file, a PDF file, a CSV file, or a text file, which is a notepad, right? So you can either export this information or this list of all of your areas in either one of those 4 formats. You can choose if you'd like this, this list out of 3,000 records, right? So if you have more than 30,000 records, then you might want to choose the second one, right? So then you'll just specify here 30,000, for example, and then the next 30,000. Okay, so if I just click on the top here, this will then export the maximum amount of data, which is 30,000. Okay, so I'm just going to close this. So if you want this list and you want to export this, you'll just use the export button. The import, how this works is you'll first need a template, right? So before you can import any information, you'll first need a template. If I click on this, it will download a template for me. It will be an Excel file with the field names already inputted, as well as some dummy information or some test information that you can always just change or move around or stuff like that. Okay, so you'll be able to manipulate the data on the Excel file. Then once you're done on the Excel file, you can just come back and hit that import button, and then that information will then display if you did it correctly on the system. Okay, so that is the area settings, quite in depth. The department, if I switch over to the department view, you will see your hierarchical view on the left-hand side. Okay, so this is what this drop-down menu was, right? So this drop-down menu is also a hierarchical view, but it's only for areas. Department has its own hierarchical view. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a nice window like this one, but the department at least has one, right? So you'll see here that we have our hierarchical view. If I close this one, you have two main departments. One is called ZKTeco Experience Center, and the other one is called Hotel. Okay, so they're at the same level. The Experience Center had 3 children, sales had 0, training room 0, ZKTeco Internal had a few, right? And then each department can go in depth, etc. Okay, support had a few also as well. Repairs had Takane, for example. Okay. So that is all of our departments that we've created, right? So you'll see the list on the right-hand side. It's quite familiar because it looks exactly the same as the area, right? So you'll have your default department. This was also called department. So in your case, this might just be department, but we renamed it the Experience Center, for example, okay? You will see this sort, which is 5 nines. Please leave this alone. Do not play with the sort. Otherwise, your departments will list as is, right? So you'll see here, all the ones are together, the 3s are together, 4s, 2s, 5s, and then a number 4, 4, 4, for example. So it will all be mixed up. Okay, so please do not play with the sort. Just leave the sort as is. Leave this on 5 nines. Do not play with that, and then you'll be fine. Okay. You'll also note that you cannot change the department number. Again, if you create a new department, please do not use any zeros in the front, no special characters, as well as no letters. Okay, so no letters inside of this, only numbers. Start from number 1 and go from there. Okay, the department name, this can be anything. In your case, it might be sales, repairs, support, I don't know, management, anything, right? So any department that you are marketing, for example, any department that you are associated with or that you have inside of your company, you can create a department over here. Okay, so just a sort, and then you choose a parent department. Quite familiar because we already went through this on the area settings. Okay, so area settings, how to create areas. And then you will just choose a parent department for this one department that you want to create now, for example. Okay, and then that department will then go lay underneath its parent. Okay, so that is how you set up your department. So department is important for your employees, right? So department, you link employees to departments, and areas you link devices to. Okay, so devices links to areas, employees linked to departments, very important. Then also the buttons at the top, exactly the same as the area settings. So I'm not going to go over that again. The database management, what is that all about? So on your database management, you will be able to back up your database as well as schedule a backup, as well as add yourself an FTP server if you already have an FTP server. Okay, so if you do not know what an FTP server is, I would like to go Google. Okay, so an FTP server is just an online place to store your information, etc. Okay. You will need that information from your service provider. So if you want to set up an FTP server, you just click on that, and then you'll need to input the information from your server inside of the software so that this software can connect to that FTP server so it can save it to that server side. Okay, so you'll need the IP address, port number, folder location when you want to save this, the username, the password, etc., etc. If this is all correct, you'll just click on test connection, and then it will say successful. Currently, this is just some mock information, so it's test information. this is not correct, so it will not connect to our FTP server. Okay. So if this says successful, then you have set up your FTP server correctly. Okay, you'll need that information from your service provider, as I already said. You will also note or notice that we have on this list over here, we will see red icons as well as green ones. Okay, so you'll see that this is named the backup immediately. Oh, I just clicked on something. Okay. You will see that this is listed as backup immediately. The first one is red, then the green, then red, red, red again. Right, so what is that all about? If it's green, it just means that this was a manual backup. This was not an automatic backup. So if it's red, it means that it's an automatic backup. Okay, so how do you do a manual backup? It's this one over here, backup immediately. If I click on that, it'll ask me, are you sure you want to back this up now? Obviously, I'm going to say yes. If you want to save this to the FTP server, you also click on that. It will then send the information to your FTP server. But currently, this will not work because we do not have one, right? So I'm just going to refresh this page quickly so that we do not wait too long for this, right? So I'm just going to click on backup immediately again, right? And then I'm just going to say, okay. If I say okay, it's going to run a little while. And there we go. There we have a new record that is green. Okay. So everything that is green on the backup immediately, it means that it was backed up manually. Okay. Backup status. If it's green, it means that it successfully backed up. Okay. What was the version of the database? You'll see that as well as when was this backed up, the time, the date, by who was it backed up, for example, and where was it backed up. Okay. So if you ever want to know where your backups are, they'll be located to wherever this path has been set when you install the software. Okay. You can always delete a backup from the software side. This will then delete it from this listing as well. So this that file will not be there anymore. If you want to set up a automatic backup schedule, you will see here that you can set up by clicking on the backup schedule. You can set a date from which the system should back up the information, right? So this system has been running since 2014, for example, and we've been backing up every day from 6 o'clock in the evening. Okay, 6 p.m. Over here, you will set up, okay, you want this every day, every 3 days, every 7 days, every 30 days, for example. Okay, so that's how you set up the backup. Do you want this to be to the FTP server? You just click that. Okay, so if I say okay, it'll also give you some information over here as well that you can just go over. Okay, so if I click on okay, then this is now been set up, right? So because every day around 6 o'clock in the evening, you'll see there is a automatic backup of the system. Okay, so very important. If you want to set up a backup schedule, you just click on this backup schedule. Okay, so that's the system basic management. Let's quickly go to access. I just want to make sure if you guys can see this other page. There we go. Okay, so let's quickly go to access. Come on. Device. All right, so now that we're on access device, you will see that this is the listed devices that we already have on the system. You will see that all of them are currently offline. Okay, so all of them are red, saying offline. This just means that the device doesn't have any communication to it or no connection, internet connection to that device anymore. Okay, so it's offline. Maybe it's been powered off, etc., etc. That is the only other reason why that will be offline. Okay. So how do you get your device on this list? You do not click on this new button. If you've clicked on this new button to add your devices, please go ahead and delete those devices. Okay, because this over here will create headaches for you, right? So please make sure that if you clicked on the new button to add your devices, go ahead and delete those devices, please, please, please. Okay, so if you click on this new to add your device, please delete that device. Do not use this method. The method I want you guys to use is the search method. Okay, so that's the automatic adding of your devices. You click on search. Then you will see another button over here that says search. And then at the bottom, it will say the current communication port is 8088. Okay, so this is important. I will show you now in a little while why this is important. If I just switch over to this other page, just make sure that you can actually see this. Yes, okay, you can. So this is just a little document that says that if you've added a device using the add button, please go ahead and delete that button or delete that device, right? So if you've added it like that, just delete that. Then if you want to add the device automatically, by the way, this is the correct way of doing it, right? You'll need to be able to ping your device. How do you get that? How do you ping your device? You can Google that online as well, right? So on the device itself, underneath the communication settings, right? So you'll need to be able to go into the menu of the device. When you want to add your device, you'll need to be able to go into the menu. Then you go to the communication settings. It's usually, yeah, it will be in your menu, right? So it will be called comms or com, and this will be your communication settings. Depending on how your device is connected, that will be the settings that you're going to use, right? So if your device is connected via Ethernet or a LAN cable, then you will use the first option over here. I'm just going to highlight that. Okay. So if your device is connected via Ethernet or LAN, you will need to set the IP address in that Ethernet settings, right? So this will be the Ethernet settings inside of the comms settings on your device. You'll go to IP and then just change the IP range of your device to the same IP range as your PC's IP address, okay? The subnet gateway and DNS should be exactly the same. And then this will allow you to connect to the network, okay? Then also, if your device is connected via Wi-Fi, please make sure that you have the password for your Wi-Fi, right? So make sure that your device can connect to the network via Wi-Fi, just like you would connect your phone, for example. This is only possible if your device can do Wi-Fi communication or Wi-Fi connection, okay? Then once you've set up the network side of things, then you're going to head over to the ADMS or the cloud settings or the network settings. This might be called either one of the three, depending on what device you have, right? So this will also be located underneath the comms option on your menu, right? Very important. You will need the server address as well as the server port. Okay, so that's why I showed you on the search window over here, the server port. So this communication number, this is the server port number that you're going to use. In your case, it might be something else. So please make sure that you click on the search option to display this, this number for you, this 4-digit number. Okay. If I go back here, it's going to ask you for a server address. What is the server address, right? That is your server's IP address. Okay. If your server is on a different network, let's say your server is in Cape Town and you're in Johannesburg, you have the device with you and you want that device to connect to the server in Cape Town, then the server in Cape Town will need a public IP address. Okay, so you will need a public IP address in order to point your device towards that server in Cape Town. Okay, so that IP address, that public IP address will be the one that you then put in there. If it's on the same network, then you just need the PC's IP address. Okay, so if you put the public IP address, then it will not work if you're in the same network. But if you're on different networks, then the public IP address will work. Okay. So that's the way you can do that. The server port is that 4-digit number. If when you install the software, if you selected the HTTPS option, right? If you selected that option while installing the software, please make sure that you select that option on the device as well. If you do not have that option on the device, do not worry, right? So this is only if you've installed it with the HTTPS option. Most clients, most people do not install it with the HTTP option. So in your case, you might be okay. But if you did, please make sure that you select that on the device. All right, very important, restart your device afterwards. If you do not restart your device, it will not connect to the system. Okay, so if you want your device to show up on the search, on the software, then you need to restart the device to make permanent the information that you put in there. Okay. Also very important on your system, if you have a firewall or antivirus present, or if it's active, please make sure that it is paused or off, right? So make sure that you switch off your firewall as well as your antivirus. Otherwise, this might also block the communication to your device, so you won't be able to add your device to the system. Okay, so this is just some couple things you need to do before you want to add your device. Going to close this document quickly. Right, so you'll see here, now we're back on the system, that we have our little window already open. I'll click on search. Right, so this will then search all of the devices that is pointing to our software at the moment. Okay, so I think this is the one we're going to do today, the Nambia 260. Okay, so you'll see here, it'll list the devices that has already been added. Okay, so you'll see the list of devices that has already been added, then the other devices that you can add to the system if it's pointing towards the system. Okay, so I think it is either this one or this one that we're going to add today. I'm going to use this one, for example, just to show you guys. Right, so you'll be able to differentiate this on this on the serial number as well as the MAC address and the IP address of your device. Okay, by default, the IP addresses of all of our devices is 192.168.1.201. So 192.168.1.201. Okay, so exactly like this top one over here. Okay, then once you want to add your device, you can then rename this device. Maybe I'll call this testing, or not text. Testing _ white. Okay, so I'll just call that. I will call this device this, right? So the icon type, what is the icon type? This is what it will display as on the real-time monitoring. I will show you guys later. So if I'm just going to leave this on door, it'll display as a normal door on the system. Okay, you have an option between either flap barrier or a parking barrier. Otherwise, you can just leave it as a door if you'd like. Then also the area. Remember, we created multiple areas already. You can select an area if you'd like. So I'm just going to say training. And then this device will then be linked to this area at the top here called training. Okay. A level. So in your case, you might not have any levels yet. We are going to go over that just in a moment's time. But in your case, you might not have anything yet. But if you have something, then you can select that if you'd like. Okay. So the add to level, this is just the access levels. Then the following option, if you tick that, then it will clear all of the information in the device. Let's say you want this device to be as brand new as it can be, right? So if you want a brand new device and it was used before, then you'll just click on that and it will wipe out the information on the device, all the transactions, history, the personnel, etc. If you do not select that, then that information will still be retained on that device. So if you want that device's information, then you'll not tick this in this box, right? Okay, so I'm just going to say, okay. That was just a additional prompt for our software because we have multiple cards already activated. Okay, it says that it was successful. I'm going to close this. I'm going to refresh this page. And there you will see we have our device called Testing White Marnu, and it is online. Okay, you will see the IP address of this device, the way it's connected. It is connected via Wi-Fi or a LAN cable, right? So it is not a Wi-Fi device, and then also the communication type, etc. Okay, so this device has now been added. If I click on edit, you'll notice that you cannot change the serial number, IP address, communication port, control panel type. So you cannot change anything of that. This is not be able to change this on this device from this window. Okay. So the only thing you can change on this window over here is maybe rename this device, as well as choose a different icon type, as well as change the time zone of this device. If this is +6 in your example, please make sure that you put it to the correct time zone. If you're in South Africa, it will be +2. Otherwise, if you're in a different country, it might be something else. Okay, so this is just for your records. If you want the information to display correctly, then you'll select that time zone that you want. Okay, then also the area, you can always change the device to a different area. Maybe you relocated this device to Cyril, then you'll just move it to Cyril if you'd like. But I'm just going to keep it on training for now. I'm going to say okay. All right, so now I have my one device already added. Okay, so the other way to edit a device is just by clicking on the name. That will also just open up the window that we just had. Otherwise, we can delete it or do a multiple delete, for example, and then click on this delete. Okay, so that is one way of doing things. Then also, if you want to export this list, you can do that as well. You know the 4 options we have available: Excel, PDF, CSV, as well as a text file, and the maximum is 30,000 records. Then the search button I already went across. The control of your devices. If you want to clear the administration permissions on a device, this will then take the admins off of a device for a little while. If you sync the information to the device again with the bottom one, then the admins will be back. Okay, so if you want to clear the information, the admin information on a device to allow people to go into the menu of the device, that is the option you'll use, right? So clear admin. And then also the sync information. This will replace everything on the device with the information that you have set up on the system. Okay. Then also, if you want to disable or enable a device, if I disable this, I'm just going to select that like this. I'm going to disable this device, for example. You will see that it now says disable and it's orange. That just means that it has been added to the system, but it is no longer active. Okay, so I'm just going to use this, enable it again. There we go. We are back online. And now I can receive some information from this device. Okay. Then also you can reboot your device if you'd like, or you can synchronize the time from the system to the device. Okay. Setup, we're not going to touch. Get view. If I want to know the information on this device, if I want to update the information on the device, maybe I change something on the device menu, for example, and it does not display on the system, and I want to update the information on the system, right? I will just click on that get view information. Right, so get device option, that will just update the information, as well as if maybe your device is still showing as offline, but it is connected to the network, then also you can use this get device option. It will then awake and then make this device online again. Okay. Then also get personnel information. If I want to get the personnel information from this device, let's say this was a previously owned device, I want to now pull that information from the device. You'll first need to get the personnel information before you can get the fingerprint information. So you'll first click on the obtain personnel information. I'm going to say start. It's going to run a few commands. All right. Almost finished. Okay, so now I've got the personnel information. Let's get the fingerprint information from this device. I'm going to say start. Yes, I already have the personnel information from this device. Let's quickly get the fingerprint information. Okay, so now I've got all of the information on this device. I'm going to close. Let's get all of the transactions from this device. Everything that happened on this device will now be displayed. Okay, so this is usually what you do with an offline device. If some device was offline, like the above devices over here, you would like to get all of the transactions first. Okay, otherwise you'll not see the old transactions from them. Okay. Then if you want to see the rules set for this device, You will see that this device only has an active time zone on it. Nothing else has been set up for this device over here. Okay, so nothing else has been set up. If there was any other things set up for this device, you'll be able to see that this device maybe had interlocking or anti-passback or anything like that. If you want to see the capacity of this device, I'm just going to click on get. It's going to quickly run. And there we see that I have 43 employees on this device, 12 fingerprints. The version of that fingerprints is number 10. And then we don't have anything else on this. Okay. So now we have 43 employees on the device, which was now sent to the system because I said get the personnel information. The communication over here, if you want to modify the IP address of this device, this is then where you'll use this. Okay, so this is how you can modify the IP of the device because you cannot change it on this edit window over here. Then also, if you want to change the modify communication password, you can do that as well as the RS485, as well as switching it to a different network connection type. Okay, so that is everything you can do on a device, on the device tab on this little window. Let's go over to the door settings. Okay, so you'll see here that I have testing white Marnu 1 and 2. Okay, so this is just the reason because this device is a 2-door controller. So I have 2 doors, right? So each door has 2 slaves or 2 readers, for example, connected to that. But in our case, I only have 1. Okay, so you will see here as well as the verification method for this device is only card and fingerprint. The others are all automatic. Okay, so let me quickly go to number 1 for you. For example, you'll be able to change the name, right? So maybe you'll call this server room door entrance and the other one was server room door exit, for example. You can name this whatever you'd like. Please note that you cannot change the device name. The only way you can change this name is on the device tab. Okay, so you can only change the door name over here and then choose a verification method. So I'm just going to choose automatic. Okay, so the reason I chose automatic is because that if it's on automatic, it will then use any identification that the devices connected to this device can use. If they can use maybe a facial or a fingerprint or a palm or whatever, then this device will also be able to do this as well. Okay, because it's connected together, it's working together as a team. So I'm just going to leave that on automatic. If you'd like to set this device to only be able to open up with fingerprints, then obviously you'll need a fingerprint reader. Otherwise, no one will be able to access that door. If you say password, they will need a keypad as well as only card. Your personnel will then need cards as well as your device will be able or needs to be able to read cards. Okay. If it has a slash, okay, so if it says fingerprint / password, it means that it's either or. So you'll either need to present a fingerprint or a password or a card or a fingerprint or a card or a password, for example. If it has a plus, it means that it requires both before the door can open up. Okay, so fingerprint plus password, that just means that you'll need to present both of these forms of identification. Otherwise, the door will not open up. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it on automatic identification. Then on the active time zone, I will show you guys how to set up time zones in a little while. Okay, so by default, there's a 24 hours accessible, okay, that you can choose. The other time zones is what we already created. So if you have a different time zone you want to add a device, you will need to be able to put it here. But I'm just going to put this on 24 hours, right? Then also the lock open duration. How long should the lock or the door stay open before the lock needs to be activated again, right? So let's say this is a mag lock that is added to your door and you tag on this on the reader and the door opens up. Okay, then after 5 seconds the lock is going to start to activate. If the door is closed, then the lock will slam shut. Okay, because it will lock the lock. It will activate the electromagnetic lock. Okay, in 5 seconds. If you'd like the door to stay open for a little while longer, maybe they can still close the door, but the lock will not stay active or not go active, then you can maybe put this to 6. But I think 5 is actually a good number. So I'm just going to leave it on 5. every 5 seconds, once you've tagged open the door will then lock again after 5 seconds. Okay. Then if you have a door sensor connected to this door, please make sure that you select a door sensor. If you do not have a door sensor connected to the door, then leave it on none. I'm going to put this on normally open because I know what my device has, right? Then also I'm going to put this operate interval to 0. This will just mean that people then can tag every second or less than a second. They don't have to wait for 2 seconds before they can tag again. The door sensor delay, how long should the door delay, right? So the door sensor on this should delay 15 seconds, for example. The passage delay, this is where you set up the passage delay for your employees, right? So if you select the passage delay for an employee, this will then open up the lock for 5 seconds more, or maybe 10 seconds, right? So if someone has a passage delay on this, I will maybe put this back to 5. Okay, so I'll just leave it on that. Passage mode time zone. You can also choose a different time zone in what time this passage delay should be able to activate. Okay. Then also the multi-person interval. I'm not going to cover that today, but this will be in the intermediate course. Okay. Then if you'd like to copy this information to all of the other devices connected to this device, so let's say this is a ZKBio controller, I want to move this to the other door also connected to the ZKBio controller, I will just move it to all the doors on the current device. Otherwise, if you choose the other one, it will move it to all the other controllers that we have. Okay, so I'm just going to use it on the one on this current device. So if I go here, you'll see that there is a normal open. Okay, so I already moved this to normal open because I used that option over there. Okay, so let's quickly go to real-time monitoring. You'll also see the options here at the top. Before I go to real-time monitoring, this you'll also be able to do on the real-time monitoring page, right? So if I go there now, you'll see that information also at the top there. Okay, you'll also note that I have 2 doors with red icons on them. This is the doors that I have now with me that has now been added. I'm going to cancel the alarm for this one door as well as for the other one. Okay, cancel the alarm. Okay, so the reason that alarm was there was because that the mag locks that I've connected to this device was also offline. So I first put on the device and then the mag locks, but if I put on the mag locks first and then the device, then it wouldn't show that that error. So the reason it was showing that is because the locks was then open. Okay, before the device was online. So you'll see here the options at the top that I mentioned on the door tab, right? You will see a remote open. So if I click on this, it will then open up all of the doors in your list. Okay, so it won't just open up one individual door, it will open up all of them at once. If I click on remote closing, it will close all of the doors. So the ones offline, the reason I do not click on this options here is because I have devices offline. It'll give me a lot of errors saying that these devices cannot do this because they're offline, but I already know that, so that's fine. So I'm not going to do this options over here. It'll just give me some headaches. Okay, so these options over here control all of your devices at once. If you want to do this for an individual device, you just hover over it, and then you'll be able to choose one of those options. Okay, so this is the icon type that we chose. We chose a door. Okay, so all of these devices are doors, right? So that's why they look like a door. Then also cancel alarm. That's basically what I did for these individual devices, right? Just to cancel the alarm that was on them, as well as the active lockdown. So if you activate a lockdown, a normal opening, a remote opening does not open your doors if you have a lockdown activated. Okay, the only way is to open up your doors again if you have a lockdown on is by deactivating that lockdown. So you won't be able to open up your doors if you activated the lockdown. The only way to open them is by clicking on the deactivate lockdown. Okay, so this is a little bit different to your remote open and closing. Then underneath the more option over here, you have a remote normally open, as well as an intraday passage mode and a disable intraday passage mode time zone. Okay, so that's the three things you have underneath more. A remote normally open is usually used for a reception area or a high traffic area that you want the door to be able to open and close, but you don't want the lock to activate. Okay, so there is a maglock active on this door, but it's not locking and it's not unlocking. It's unlocked. If you do a remote normally open, the door can still open and close, but the lock is not activated. Okay, so if I do this, then the device will stay open until I click on that again. Okay, so this is usually used for a high traffic area. As I've said, we do not want to lock open the door again for each person that wants to come into the practice, for example, or the building. You just want them to enter, and you don't want them to ring the bell each time for the door to be unlocked. Okay, so that's what this option is for. Then also the intraday passage mode time zone, it's exactly the same as the normally open. It just uses a time zone. Okay, so at the bottom, you will see a list of all of the transactions on your device. If I swipe a card on this device, you will see some transactions going through. So you will see that I have now opened the doors. You will see Marnu as well as the card number that I used. What was the reader I used? What did I use? Only a card. Okay, so you'll see the information over here. I'm just going to use this again. Just want to move this lock a little bit. Okay. So you'll also see a window pop open at the bottom, right, with a photo, a profile photo. If I tag there again. Okay, this will pop up every time if someone tags. If you do not want to see this photo, you can just unselect this option over here. Then if I tag again, for example, you will see the transaction coming in, but there will be no photo displayed. Okay. Also, if you do not want to hear the alarms on your system, you'll need to select this sounds reminder. Then it will take away the alarm sound. Okay, so you'll still see the alarm with the red icon, but it won't blare into your ears saying there's an alarm. Please go check that out, for example. Okay, so if you deselect this option, then you won't hear the alarms anymore. But if you select that, it will blare in your ears if you come to this real-time monitoring and there is an alarm activated. Okay. So that is basically real-time monitoring. If someone that is not registered on your system tries to tag, okay, so that finger is registered. Let me use a different finger. You will see that there is a unregistered personnel try to tag on this device and the door then closed correctly afterwards. Okay. So you'll see some different information here displayed depending on what happens on the devices. So that is your real-time monitoring. Let's quickly go to time zones. I'm still within time, so that's fine. All right, so time zones, you will see that there's a default time zone. It's called 24 hours accessible. You cannot edit this time zone or delete this time zone. This time zone is just as is. Right, if you want to see what that time zone looks like, I have set it up over here. I'm just going to call this 24 hours. Okay, so you know what it's all about. Right, so that's what that 24 hours looks like. It starts at midnight and then it ends just before midnight. Okay, so you'll notice that there's 3 different intervals. I'm just going to say okay here just to save this. Let me open up this one. So we've called this 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., right? You can name it whatever you like. If you want to put in a remark there, you can, but I think the name is pretty self-explanatory, right? You will notice that there's 3 intervals, 1, 2, and 3, as well as the different dates on the side. And then each interval has a start time and an end time. Okay, so end time, start time, end time, etc., etc. Okay, so for Monday, I'm just gonna make sure that the bottom here is all clean. Okay, so for Monday, if you set up 6 to 12, for example, it will mean that your devices linked with this time zone can then be activated or accessed. Okay, so if you do not want your devices to be accessed 24 hours within a day, then you'll create a time zone. Okay, so the first time you put in here is the first time your devices will be online. Okay, so they will be able to open up the door for someone if they tag within this time. So if I select this time zone on a device, then this device will only work within that time. Okay, so if I put the start time as 6 o'clock, 6 a.m., and I move the end time of the first interval to 12 o'clock, then it will mean that I can access my device between these two times, 6 and 12. Okay, then the next interval will then come up. Let's say I put here 12:01, then it will mean that there's 1 minute between 12 and 12:01 that you cannot use that device, right? So from 12:01, then you can use the device again until 4 o'clock, for example. Okay, that's currently what we set up over here. Then between 4 and 5, you cannot open up the door because that's the end time and the start time again. So between that two times, there is a space. Okay, so between that two times, you cannot open up that door. Okay, so between 4 and 5, you cannot enter or exit. And then after 5 until 10 o'clock in the evening, you can then use the device again. After 10 and between 6 or currently it's on midnight, so between 10 and midnight you won't be able to use the door again. Okay, so if I copy this information from Monday to Friday, then it will mean that once Monday is passed, right, after 10 o'clock in the evening, then only the next day 6 o'clock you will then be able to open up that door again. Saturday and Sunday you will need to set up. Okay, so you'll need to set this up on your own. You cannot copy this to Saturday and Sunday, as well as the holiday 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so you'll see here there's different types 1, 2, and 3. You'll note that when we create holidays, you can choose a different type. Okay, so please make sure that you set this up if you would like. Otherwise, you can just leave it on the 24 hours and then everything will still work correctly. Okay, so I'm just going to say cancel because I don't want to change anything there. That is basically the time zones. Let's go to holidays. Okay, you will see that we already created 3 different holidays. We called it New Year, Christmas, and then also Youth Day. Okay, you'll see here the start date and end date of each holiday that we set up. If I want to edit one, I will just show you. You can input a name for this holiday. You can always change the information on this holiday, right? So you can always change it. Once you've created this, it's not set in stone like the areas, departments, as well as employees, right? So the area name you can change, the holiday type. You can then choose either this is a holiday type number 1, type number 2, or type number 3, like Youth Day. And then also a start date. When does this start? Right, so this is the 1st of January. When does this end? It ends on the 1st of January, right? We started on last year, for example. So this holiday started last year, okay? Is this a recurring date? If it's a yes, then it will happen each year on the 1st. And then also, what is your remark for this if you'd like? Okay, so that's basically a holiday. You can set this up if you'd like. I know China has holidays that is right after each other, so they have like a few weeks holiday. So that's maybe one kind of holidays you can add. So that's why there's an end date as well. Okay, so you can delete them as well as edit them. If I click on new, you will see the same fields that I've just shown you. Okay, so this is the holidays. Let's quickly go to access levels. What is access levels all about? Access levels allows your employees to open up doors. Okay, so without access levels, your devices won't be able to open up for anyone. Okay, so very important, you will need a access level. Okay, so access levels, I think in your case, there might not be any access levels, right? So we have a few different access levels already created. For example, you will see the area name that this access level is using, right? So if your area name is on ZKTeco Experience Center, then you'll only be able to use the devices on the Experience Center, for example. But because this is the main branch, it can use all of the devices within this because it's at the head of this branch. It has multiple children. So if you added your devices to the children and you choose the access level to the parent, then this parent can still use the children's devices. Okay. So interlocking, if I edit this window quickly with you guys, you'll see here that I named this interlocking. I'm just going to call this testing interlock. Let's just leave it testing. Okay. What is the time zone that I want active on this access levels? So over here, you will choose your different time zone that you created. Maybe you want this access level to only operate between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. Then you will select that if you've created it, or the Marno, which is also 24 hours. I will just leave it on 24 hours for now. The area, where does this apply to? I'm going to say training, for example. I'm going to say, okay. You'll be able to see the amount of doors inside of these access levels. This one has 0 doors on this. This one has 8. Okay, so because these devices or these access levels are located or linked to the area, the main area, if I click on add door, you will see all of your devices that can still be added to this access level. Okay, the testing, if I click on add door, on the testing, you will see that I can only add the devices that are on training. Okay, so because I made sure that this testing can only work with the devices on the training area, it will only display the devices inside of the training area. So I'm going to say, okay, over here. I've now added doors to my access levels. I click on close. And I maybe want to edit this. Let's move this back to ZKTeco, for example. I just want to show you quickly. If I click on this add door, here you will see the rest of all of our devices that we can still add. But because I limited this access level to only use the devices inside of training, if I click on this add door, you will see that I cannot add any of the other doors. Okay, so very important. If you have a area, let's say this one has only have 3 devices, and I click on add, you'll be able to add all of the devices that have still not been yet added. If they've already been added, then this field on the left will be blank. Okay, so let's hope this one has all of the doors, except the one that we added today, right? So because it has 10 doors already on this, it will not display those 10 doors again on this access level. If you want to delete those doors from this access level, you can always select them on this side and then delete them. Okay. I'm going to delete them from this one. Okay, so I'm going to delete the doors on the staff, and I am then also going to delete this staff access level, for example. Okay, so I cannot delete the staff access level because this has been added to personnel, for example. Okay, so there's no doors currently on this access level. You can also activate, deactivate, etc. on this window as well. Okay. You can also export the list of all of your devices or all of your doors on this access level if you'd like, by clicking on this export. And then you have the 4 options again of Excel, PDF, CSV, and text file. Then on the set access by levels, over here, you'll be able to select your personnel for staff or whatever access level you'd like. I'm just going to delete all of this quickly. So I can actually delete the staff. If I click on delete. Okay, so it's being used by a different visitor module. I'm not going to go into that now. Okay, so set access by level, set access by person and department all works kind of the same. Each one just looks at something different, right? So the set access by levels, you'll be able to see all of the access levels that we have, right? So we created 5: testing, server room, staff, visitor, all, for example, right? You'll be able to add personnel to this. Currently, there's only one person that can use this testing access level. If I click on add personnel, you can add the other people as well. Please note that if you've added them, then they won't show up on the list on the left. They'll show up here on the list on the right. Just like access levels with the devices, if you've added all of your personnel, then they will not show up here on the left. Okay. So you have your already created access levels, then you can just add to these access levels, maybe the people you want to open up the doors allocated to these access levels. So this might have been server room, for example, and you only want a certain few employees to open up those doors. Let's say these two are not there, for example. You only want 3 people to be able to open up the server room devices. Then you will select the server room, add those 3 people, for example, like I already did here, and then they will display over here. Okay, so the way you add them, okay, so if you have multiple employees or devices on the access levels, right, if you select them over here, you can move them across with the tiny arrow, the 1 arrow. Okay, so 1 arrow moves the selected options from the left to the right. If I select all of them, tiny arrow back, okay. So this one moves from the right to the left to the right. If I click on the double arrows at the top, it will move everything from the left to the right. Bottom double arrows will move everything from the right to the left. Okay, so the left is not active, right? So for this access level, they will not be able to open up any doors on this. But if you have selected them to the right, they will then display on this list over here. Okay. Then by person, as I've said, this also works exactly the same. You don't have to set up all 3 of them. You can just choose one of them. So you can either use the levels or the person or the department, depending on what you want. Okay, so you don't have to use all of them. You can look at each individual personnel, right? So maybe Aurora here, for example, you will see that all of the access levels that she has been added to. If I want to add a different level to this person, you can then just move them across depending on what access level they do not have yet. Okay, so I'll just move this person over. And then you'll see that this person is able to open up all 5 of these access levels, right? So each one of these has different devices connected to them. Saga, for example, can only open 1. Visitor can only, or not visitor, Tepo can only open up visitor as well as all. Dirk, for example, 2, Sydney 2, full 2, etc., etc. Okay, so you'll be able to see what access levels these personnel are located on or added to. Okay, for the set access by department, remember in the past, in the beginning, I told you that your department is meant for your employees. So if you've added them to a different department, I will just show you now right after this how to add your personnel. But when you add your personnel, you add them to a department. Okay, so that's one of the important fields that you need to fill in. Okay, so once you've added your personnel, you will also be adding them to a department. So let's say everyone in support, for example, should be able to use, let's add a different level here, for example, everyone in support should be able to use testing. Okay, so if you added any employees to support, then now everyone in support will be able to open up all of these doors that is located or connected to these access levels. Okay, so everyone in sales, for example, can only open up these 4. Everyone in Gerald's department can only open 1 of these access levels. ZKTeco internal can use all 3 of these access levels. Okay, so this just depends on the setup you want to do. If you want to do this per department and not per person, you can do that as well. Okay, so You can do this either or. You don't have to do each one of the three. You can just choose one and then do that for this for that option. Okay, let's quickly go to your personnel. How do you add a personnel? Okay, so you'll find your personnel underneath personnel and then person. So over here, you will see your list of departments. In hotel, we have one person that works in hotel, right? So Aurora works in hotel. In sales, we have 33 people. Okay, so all of these people work in sales. Training room, we have 4 people. Underneath training room, there's nothing. ZKTeco internals. If I go to other, there's 4 people in other, 0 in sales. Support 2. Okay, so I'm currently in support, so I'm just going to use my employee. Okay, you also see Joseph here as well. Okay, he has a palm print, a fingerprint, a card, and a facial with a card number, right? So it will also display the card number with him, then the position name, the department name, etc., etc. So you can set this up whatever you'd like. Okay, so this is just test information. If I click on this ZKTeco Experience Center, obviously it will have all of the employees inside of this. Okay, so it will also display Cyril, Phil, etc. that's in a different department. Okay, so this one is in other, sales to, etc., etc. I will also be inside of this list now. But let's just use this for support. Okay. So you'll notice there's a few different options at the top before I go into adding in the employee. You will see that there is a dismissal option. If I click on dismissal, it will then, okay, let's first add a user before I do that. Adjust department. If I want to adjust Marnu's department, I can move me to a different one if I'd like. Let's not move me, let's move someone else. I'm going to move this personnel as well as this one. Adjust their departments. You'll see there, they're selected persons, right? They are then separated by a semicolon. So this is their personnel IDs, right? So you can have multiple people. And now I'm going to move them to a different one. They are currently in other. Let's move them to market. Okay. I can say, okay, here. And now they will no longer be in other. They will now be in market. Okay. So you can adjust the department as well as the position, right? So if you have created any position, you can do that as well. I'm just going to say sales, for example. There we go. Now they're in sales. That's their position. You can delete them if you'd like. You can either delete their biometric data or their personnel profile. So the whole thing, you can delete that if you'd like. Also export, import, if you'd like that to do that as well. Export the personnel photo, the biometric templates, or the whole profile as is, right? Without the biometric templates, right? So that profile is just information, not the biometric templates. If you'd like to import this, you have an option of either importing the dismission, so the dismissal information, right? So if you dismissed someone, you can import that list as well, but you'll need a template. So first download the template. Okay, before you can import anything, you'll first need the template. Okay, so once you've set up with the template, then you can import the other options over here. Then the statistics. Over here, you will see that we have 5 males, 1 female out of 50 people, the fingerprints, the near face, etc., palm veins, how many of the cards we have enrolled, facial pictures, etc. Okay. Then also if you'd like to print a card, but that's for a different module. Okay, so let's quickly go back to support. I'm going to click on Marne. If I click on Marne, you will see that it's an edit window. I will not be able to change the ID, right? Because this personnel has already been created. So if I want to create a different, or if I want to create a different profile, but with the same or different number, then obviously you will lose the information on this. Okay, so once you've created your personnel information, you won't be able to change the ID. Okay, so if your ID is incorrect, you'll have to delete that personnel or do an export and then delete all of this, import this back with the new numbers that you've added on Excel, for example. That's maybe one way of you can that you can bypass that information or that problem. Okay, so once you've set up your personal ID, this is the personal ID that is set to your employee. Okay, please make sure that once you add your employees, that your ID is exactly the same as it is on the device. Okay, so if you are number 2 on the system and you are number 3 on the device, and you synchronize to the device, or you pull information like I've done to the software, and someone else is sharing your ID, then your information will be mixed with that person. Okay, so you've just corrupted your information by doing that. Okay, so very important. Please make sure that your ID is exactly the same as it is on the software, as it is on the device. Okay, so do not have a mismatch of information, otherwise you will have trouble on your hands. Okay, then at the top right, you will see the department that I was speaking about earlier, right? So you'll be able to choose this person works in support, or he works in training, for example. I'm going to say, no, let's just leave him. Yeah, let's just leave him in training or support. I'll just leave him in support. You'll also note that once I change a different department, you will see the access levels at the left-hand side will vary or will change, right? So for training, there's no access levels added to this training department. But if I was added to the support department, remember I've added multiple access levels for that department. So if you work in support, you will be able to use all of these devices, for example. Okay. Please put in a first name and a last name, because I'm sure that you do not know who number 1 is or who number 3 is on the device. Okay, so please make sure that you put in a first name and a last name, just so that you will be able to identify your personnel, a gender if you'd like, a mobile phone, certificate number. This works together with a certificate type, right? So if you'd like, you can maybe choose an ID and maybe put your ID number there if you'd like. Okay, but this is not necessary. The only thing that is necessary is the personal ID and in the department. Okay. Then if you choose a different position name, you can choose a different position. I just chose management because I like management, so I'm just going to leave it there. Hire date, when was this person hired? You can input that hire date in there if you'd like. Then also the device verification password. So this is a password, right? So I'm just going to put in a password there. You can put in anything. This is what you will use on the device. If it has a keypad and you do not have any other forms of identification, then you can use your password. Okay, the card number, if you have a card enrollment reader like I do, currently not plugged in. Let me see if I can quickly plug this in for you guys. Right, there we go. I'm going to unplug the device. Okay, so my card reader is now online. So I have a USB card enrollment reader. If you have one of those, it's a plug and play unit. You just plug it in. I'm going to delete this. So I just click in that field and I place my card, my RFID card on this reader, right? You will see that it reads the number from the card. This is my card number. Okay. So if I swipe this card now, if I save this information, it will then open up the doors for me if they are located or connected to these access levels. Okay. I'm just going to say, okay, quickly. No. You'll also note that there is a card with a hand. If I click on that, I'll be able to select a device that I want to read a card from, right? So now currently it's asking on that device, okay, please swipe this card. If you swipe this card, I will then input the information over here. Okay, so currently these devices is not able to enroll cards. Okay, so you'll need a card enrollment device that is able to enroll cards. Okay, so I'm just going to stop this issue because I already have my card number. Otherwise, if you know this, you can manually type that in. Come now. Okay. So over here, this is the profile picture that was displaying every time in real-time monitoring. If I tagged on the devices, this is the profile picture that then displayed. You can always change this image if you'd like. You can just browse for it. Okay. The biometrics type over here, you will see that I have enrolled a face as well as a fingerprint information. If I click on the eye, you will see a face of someone else. This is not me, right? So they enrolled their face on my profile. You will see that this is not entirely correct. They have glasses on their head. They have a shadow on their face. So when you enroll your face with the devices, please make sure that there's no shadows on your face, no light overexposure on your face, no lights behind your head, no tilting of your head, no slanting of your head, no smiling. Just look straight forward into the camera. Make sure that you have a white background for the best results, as well as if you're wearing any hats or beanies or anything like that, please take that off. Make sure that you're not wearing any glasses. Just look straight into the camera, right? So for the best results, please please adhere to that restrictions, right? You'll also be able to see, okay, I have enrolled fingerprints for this user as well. Okay, so how do you enroll fingerprints? Let me quickly plug in my fingerprint enrollment reader. Which one is it? This one. It is also a USB unit. Okay, there we go. It's online. So you click on this hand with a device underneath it that says register. Okay, it'll open up a small window. If you select the other two over here, you will see that you'll be able to enroll a palm. If you have a palm enrollment reader, it looks like that picture over there, or a finger vein if you have one of those devices. I only have a fingerprint reader, so I'm just going to use this one. Make sure that you use the fingerprint scanner if you have a USB scanner. If you have a device that can do this, you'll need to be able to select this device. Currently, I do not have one of those devices, so I'll just use a fingerprint scanner. Okay, so in your case, if you have a device on the wall that can enroll fingerprints, you can use this. You'll be able to select that device, say confirm. Then you need to make sure that that employee is already at the device when you do this, okay? Otherwise, the time will pass and they will not be able to enroll the finger. They'll need to go back again, okay? So for the fingerprint enrollment reader, the USB enrollment reader, you will be able to select a finger. Okay, so now I'm going to enroll a fingerprint for this finger. I'm just going to select that finger and place my finger on this reader. Please make sure that when you enroll your finger, that this swivel or this the circular what do you call it? The swivel or the swirl inside of your fingerprint is in the middle of the sensor, okay, for the best results. Okay, you'll see here that I was not able to enroll that finger because it's already been enrolled. Okay, so it says it's a duplicate fingerprint, so I cannot use that finger. I use this this index finger over here. I'm just going to delete a finger. How do you delete it? You click on it and you say okay. If you select the duress fingerprint, let's enroll a pinky as a duress fingerprint. Oh, that's a little bit light. It's also a little bit light. Hopefully it takes it. No. Okay. Let's enroll a different finger on that space. You can do that as well. Okay, so I'm just going to do that. All right. So in our case, it's green, but in your case, it will be red. Okay, so the red one will just indicate that this is a duress fingerprint. What is a duress fingerprint? This is usually if your employee or you yourself is held hostage or maybe at gunpoint and they are forcing you to open up a door. Maybe it's a safe door or something, a server room or something. They are forcing you to open up that door. Then you'll use a duress fingerprint to notify your guards that is inside of the guardhouse, for example, that is watching the real-time monitoring, right? That there isn't a problem, okay, that they need to come or something. Maybe they need to phone the police because you're at gunpoint, you're being forced to open up that door. The duress fingerprint will still open up the door for you, but it will trigger an alarm on that device. Okay, so they will still open up the door so that you will not be shot. Okay, but it will trigger a alarm. Okay, so I'm just going to delete this finger. And that is your fingerprint. I'm going to say, okay. Okay. If you select your access levels over here, you'll be able to say, okay, no, you don't want this access level for this personnel. Let's say I was in a different department, for example. Okay, and I want to add a different access level from this side as well. You can do that as well. Okay. So if you want to do it like this, you can. Otherwise, I'm just going to move this to support. That also has all of them. Okay. The super user, what is that all about? Right, so a super user, if this is set to yes, then your delay passage and your set valid time will be turned off, right? So you'll see that they've become inactive. Okay, so this just means that you're now basically above the law. If you have anti-passback set up for your system, then this will not apply to you. Nothing, no rules will apply to you. You're basically above the law. You can do anything. Okay, if you're set to no, it means that you're an ordinary user. If there's an anti-passback set up for your system, then that will also apply to you. Okay. The device operation role, what's that all about? If you're an ordinary user, it means that you cannot enter the menu of the device. Please note that if there's no administrator, however, on the device, then anyone can go into the menu of the device. Okay, so there at least needs to be one administrator on your device to lock everyone out, except for admins and enrollers, right? So if you are an ordinary user, then you will not be able to open up the device, as I've already said. Okay, if you are an administrator, it means that you can enter the menu of the device, you can change the communication settings, etc., etc. Okay, so you can basically do anything on the device. If you are an enroller, it means that you can only enroll new employees. You cannot change the IP settings, etc. Okay, so an enroller is only able to enroll employees. So I'm just going to say ordinary user for this employee. The delay passage, remember, I've shown you on the door settings. If I select this delay passage, then I will get that extra 5 seconds to open up the door. This is usually used if the person is in a wheelchair, they need more time to go through the door, then you'll select this delay passage. Okay. If you select the disabled, this doesn't mean that you are physically disabled. It doesn't mean you're in a wheelchair. It just means that you are not able to access any of the devices on the site. Okay, so if you disable this profile, it means that this person can no longer tag on the devices. Okay, so I'm not going to disable this person, for example. The set valid time over here, if you select that, you can then say, okay, for this profile, this person can only come in from the 1st and they can only work here until the last day of the month. After this date, the end time, if it is the 1st of next month, you will not be able to enter the premises anymore. Okay, so your time has then been up. You have now used up all of your dates that you can come in and out. Okay, so if you do not want that for your personnel, you'll just untick that. Okay, that is it for this. Let me just go over here. If you have more cards for your employees, you'll be able to add more cards if you'd like on the more cards option. If you do not have this option available, it will be underneath the parameters. Okay, so if you have multiple cards and you want to add these cards to your employees, you can do that if you'd like. Let's quickly go to position. Right, so position is exactly the same as department and area. It's just it works with inside of the department, right? So different positions. You might have your boss, CEO, your management, technical support, sales. If you're just a technician, you can create a different position over here. And if one reports to the other one, you'll just move them to the parent position. Okay, so parent position again. You'll know what that means. You cannot change the ID again, so the position number. If you created one, you cannot change the number, but you can change the name. Please do not touch the sort. and you'll just choose the parent if you want to move this underneath a different or another position. Okay. So this is just the positions. Dismissed personnel, how to get your people on this list over here. We'll go to the person over here. Let's go to ZKTeco Experience Center, for example. You'll see that this is a test employee. It doesn't really have names or anything. If I open up here, you will see that this person has a face. Okay, they have a facial template. Okay, so if I select this person and I say, you are dismissed, sir, I'm just going to click on dismissal over there. When is the date that this person is dismissed? What was the reason for this, right? Was it a resignation, a dismissed, a voluntary redundancy? Was this person transferred to a different company, for example? I'm just going to say dismissed. You can put here anything. He smiled. Okay. I'm just going to say, okay, there we go. He smiled. Okay. Now that person is no longer in this database. Where is he? He is inside of your dismissed personnel. There we go. There we go. Okay, so there he was dismissed. He smiled. Okay. If I want to edit the reason why he was dismissed, you can click on edit. You can change this to a maybe resignation or change the reason, the date, for example. You can choose that as well. If you delete them from this list, they will be gone. They will be no longer be on this list, for example. They will then be deleted permanently. Okay. If I want to reinstate this person to work in my database again, to work in my employee list again, I'm going to say reinstatement, right? Please note that you will need to re-enroll them. Okay, so they biometric templates, they won't have any fingerprints, they won't have any cards allocated to them. They won't have a password, etc., etc. So you will basically have to re-enroll them. Okay, so that is how you do a reinstatement. If I now re-enroll that person, they will then land again in my person. Okay, so if you dismiss someone, it takes away their biometric templates, etc. Let's go to access quickly, and this is the last thing we'll do today for reports. All transactions. So over here, you will see that all of the transactions we have for the system, currently we only have 74 because prior to this training, I cleared all of the training or the transaction data. Okay, so we had, before this, we had, I think, 20,000 something records. Okay, so you can clear the information. If you clear all of the data, then obviously the other reports over here won't have any information. So if you clear the data over here, then all of the data will be cleared across the reports. Okay, so you won't be able to see the events that happened today or all of the exception events, nothing like that. Okay, so for transactions over here, if you do not see this transaction and you were sure that you got all of the transactions from your devices, it says here that this one was disconnected because I disconnected this device so I can plug in my enrollment readers. Okay, so it will also display here what happened to the device. The door's closed, unregistered personnel tried to open the door. I opened the door again with the cards. This was a fingerprint, for example. You will be able to see everything that happened on your device. Okay, if I move this to the side, you will also see this was on reader 1, reader 2, for example. This was only cards. This was only fingerprint. Okay, so you'll be able to see what happened on the device. The device and time and event type will be on the left, and then your personnel, etc., will be on the right. Okay, so that's basically it for this. You can also export this list if you'd like, you know, the details on this, as well as export the photos. Maybe you have some photos. This was maybe a facial lock-in or something. Then you can export the photos from this list as well. All right, so that is it for today. Thank you very much for joining me in this training. If you have any other questions, I'm just going to stop the recording now.